Hello, my name is Jeremy, and today we're going to be talking about burns. A burn is what happens whenever your tissues they absorb too much energy and they're no longer able to contain it, so you actually have some tissue destruction. And we're going to be referring specifically to the skin today for first, second, third degree burns. Now, before we start, you have to know the function of the skin. Your skin has three main functions, and that's thermoregulation, which is the regulation of your body temperature. It protects us from the environment, which kind of goes with the thermoregulation, but it keeps us from getting sick and protects us from bacteria, viruses, things like that. And then we also have your sensation. So if I have a fly or if I have something nudge up against me, I'm going to be aware that it's there due to the fact that my skin has nerves in it, and it provides that sensation to allow me to see what's going on. Now, as far as thermoregulation goes, you have two types. You have thermogenesis and thermolysis. Thermogenesis is the creation of heat, which is whenever you shiver and your skin kind of allows your hair to stand on end. And thermolysis is whenever you're giving off heat or you're trying to get rid of heat. And you're going to see that with people who are sweating. Now, so you have the layers of the skin. The outermost layer, that's going to be your epidermis. It's essentially a waterproof barrier that provides us protection from the environment, keeps fluids from getting out, keeps fluids from getting in, and it actually also provides us our skin tone. So that's kind of where our skin pigment gets its color from. Now, you also have the dermis, and your dermis, that's actually where you have your hair follicles and your sweat glands and your nerve endings and things like that. So it's kind of getting right there at that cusp of where it's getting pretty deep at this point. And then you have your subcutaneous tissue. That's your fat. That's your connective tissue. Now, your epidermis and your dermis, they're relatively thin layers. To understand that, if you have a sunburn, that's considered a superficial burn or first degree burn. That actually gets your epidermis. So that thin layer of skin that peels off through your sunburn healing, that is your epidermis. And then just beneath that's your dermis. And beneath that, again, subcutaneous tissue. And beneath that, you have your muscles and your other connective tissues. Now, so a first degree burn, as I said, that is similar to a sunburn. It's essentially you have the epidermis of your skin is damaged, and it's going to be relatively painful, and you're going to have an inability to kind of regulate your body temperature in the areas that are affected. But it's not going to be as profound. It's just that barrier's been damaged, so you're more susceptible to temperature changes. Now, your second degree burns or your partial thickness burns, those involve your epidermis and your dermis. They actually go all the way to your dermis. And what that does is that actually ends up causing blisters. And it's going to be very, very painful because you have the damaged tissue is actually right there next to where the nerve endings and where they lie. So if you have somebody who has a first degree burn, that can be painful. The second degree burn, that's going to be painful. Now, in a third degree burn, that's called also known as a full thickness burn. That involves your epidermis, your dermis, your subcutaneous tissue, your muscle tissue, and potentially all the way down to your bone. And that is going to be painless. So, for example, if you have somebody that has a third degree burn, they're likely going to have second degree burns on the edges, and then potentially first degree burns from there. So if you were to touch the area of somebody who has a third degree burn, it's going to be painless due to there's not going to be any nerve endings there. And if you were to touch the outer edges of that third degree burn, it would likely be very painful due to the second degree burns that are right there. And those second degree burns are going to be, again, you're going to notice them to have blistering. And it's really important to kind of be able to differentiate between first, second, third degree burns in the field and in the textbook, because second and third degree burns, those are the only ones that we count towards our Parkland burn formula. So if I have 10% first degree burn, 10% second degree burn, 10% third degree burn, I'm only counting up to 20% because that first 10% doesn't count. So again, your skin, it aids with thermoregulation, which is regulation of your body temperature, protects us from the environment, and allows us some sensation. You have the epidermis, the dermis, and the subcutaneous tissue. And in your dermis, that's kind of where your sweat glands and your hair follicles lie. First degree burns are superficial, second degree burns are partial thickness, and third degree burns, those are also known as the full thickness burns. And that's a quick rundown on burns.